Hello and welcome to episode 185 of my podcast all about knitting and crochet and my yarn shop here in Wiesbaden, Germany. I'm Kiko and today is May 22nd, 2023. For a moment I wasn't quite sure whether it's 22nd, but that's right. Today I'm wearing the Quadrat Cowl, which is another fantastic pattern by Martina Behm. I'm pretty sure you all know who Martina Behm is, a very famous German knitwear designer who has very, very interesting ideas. And for the Quadrat Cowl, which is a cowl, obviously, so you can wear it around your neck. But the Quadrat stands for square, German word for square is Quadrat. And both parts of the Quadrat Cowl are sort of knit as a square. This is one of them and this is the other. So you need two yarns or enough of the same yarn to do both halves. And then the beginning is very simple. You just knit a square. And then there's this ingenious maneuver, which is a little bit more complicated, but she explains it really nicely and with a video. So you can, you'll be able to do it. And then the second half of the cowl again is very simple. You just decrease again until you come to a point, and then you have two squares that are attached to each other and form a tube like that, which is quite crazy and I can't wrap my head around how that works. But depending on how you hold it, you either have a triangle on one side and another triangle on the other side, or you can move your fabric around and then you can have one square on the outside and 4 points coming together, and then you have the other square on the inside. So there's lots of ways to wear this, and yeah, it was a very interesting knit. I can easily imagine knitting more of those. The yarns I use, this is a hand-dyed yarn by Wolldackel. It's one of their Aniva colorways. Is it Royal? I don't know, but one of the blue ones. And then the other one is a sort of rainbow skein by Opal. And I'm not quite sure now whether it was a subscription ball or whether it was in a series. I can't remember. When I had the skeins together, I was pretty sure they go together really well. Once I've knitted it, I just can't help thinking that the Opal yarn suddenly, which usually has these vibrant colors, but it looks a bit pale compared to the Wolldackel yarn. But I still like it, I still wear it, and I thought this Wolldackel color goes really nicely with my cardigan. And I'm actually wearing my new cardigan, the Noro Silk Garden Solo cardigan that I had as a finished object last time I recorded, and I've washed it. I didn't block it, I just washed it and laid it flat to dry, but it still grew quite a bit. So the cardigan is now quite a bit longer than I expected, but I don't mind. I don't mind having a longer jacket. The sleeves are a tad too long, which is very unusual. I usually knit them too short in order to have fitting sleeves, but it's okay. It's not too long, and I can still, I can always just fold them up if I want them a bit shorter. If I'm working with my hands, I can do that. I can push them up, so that's no problem. I tried to block the collar a bit to come a bit wider and not go straight back, and I think that worked rather well. Quite happy with how that worked out. The V-neck is a bit lower now than I expected because the whole cardigan grew, but still I'm always wearing something underneath, so it's no problem, and I have enough space to wear all my shawls and loops and scarves and whatever I have. So yeah, I'm really happy with it. Silk Garden Solo, as I said, it was a present by my sister. The pattern I've linked, I think, on my Ravelry page. I modified it a lot to not knit in pieces but knit it in one go. Yeah, and it's actually a bit too warm to be wearing the jacket, but yeah, I'll keep it on. I'll even put on the cowl, and if I get too warm, I'll take something off while I'm talking. Okay, So that's what I'm wearing today. Then on to finished objects. And as I was on holiday for 2 weeks and I haven't podcast a proper episode for 3 weeks, I have actually 4 finished projects. I'm really happy about that. I'll start with the oldest, which is the dinosaur double knit cowl loop that I knit for my cousin's son. So he's a big dinosaur fan, as most boys are. And I had this pattern by Nikki Epstein. It's out of her book called something about knitting squares or something. I don't know. I have it linked on my Ravelry page, and I should be linked underneath the video, so if you're looking for it. And in her book, she knits these squares with stranded knitting, but because this is just, it's not really a lot of contrast color, and I didn't want to do it in stranded color work, so I decided to do it in double knit. So I have a dinosaur skeleton on either side of the squares, and the little recipient can now decide whether he wants to wear the dinosaurs this way or whether he wants to turn it round and wear them that way. I'm quite happy with how I sewed them together. It's maybe not the most beautiful seam the world has ever seen everywhere, but on the whole, I think it's a rather flat seam. It looks good, I think, on both sides. I tried to do something like a mattress stitch, which does work a little different with this being double knitted fabric, but I'm quite happy with how it turned out. And I am now going to take off the cardigan. It's getting too warm. Yep. So, this is finished. And I think it's a good size. I could wear it. It'll be a bit big on him now, but he's growing, so he can keep wearing it for as long as he wants, as long as he's interested in dinosaurs. So that's finished object number 1. Then finished object number 2 is the biggest one, and that's the Pierre shawl. And that's a pattern by Stephen West. And it's a pattern, the pattern calls for 4 different colors, but I decided to use 2 different hand-dyed colors again by Wolldackel. It's their DK base that they don't dye anymore, unfortunately. And yeah, I started with the light color, then I changed between light and dark color, then light again, then I changed between the 2 colors, and then the edge, I just used the dark color. I ended up doing, I actually did 5 repeats of the lace pattern, which is not very visible right now. It will probably look a lot better once it's been blocked. I have not washed and blocked the shawl yet. I thought it'd be quite nice to show you what it looks like now, and then next week I can show it to you blocked and you can see the difference. I'll still stand up. As I said last week, it's really wide and long. It's not very deep, but I think it should be deep enough for me. And yeah, and then next week you can see what it looks like blocked. And I hope that I will be able to block it to be a bit deeper lengthwise or this way. And then I'm pretty sure that the lace pattern will be a lot more visible, even though the waves are already very visible. Yeah, so that's the Pierre shawl by Stephen West. And then the next finished object should not come as a surprise are the Mitts About You mittens. That's a pattern by Nathan Taylor, the Sockomatician. It's out of his new book, Double Knit Brioche. And yeah, there wasn't a lot to do when I showed it to you last time. I did make sure that I cast off sort of with the wrong colors again, so that those 2 edges look the same. I did turn one of them inside out, which is why the colors are reversed on these 2 ends, and then on these 2 ends, these are the cast on edges. They are a bit wider because I used a bigger needle for the start, just sort of as a swatch. And then I did the rest of the mitt with the smaller needle. This is how the mitts can be worn. You can put all your fingers in if you want to keep them warm. You can just put the thumb in as well. And then if you want to use your fingers, you can just turn this down like so. And yeah, and you can do the same with the lower parts if you want to. If you have like a big sleeve or something, you can wear them really short. I use the DK weight alpaca yarn by Hansa Farm. It's their Alpaka yarn, so this is machine washable with wool wash and the wool cycle, is that what you call it? So you have to wash them very carefully in the machine, or you just wash them by hand. If it's something this small, I will probably wash it by hand. Unless I'm doing a wool wash in the machine anyway, then I might chuck them in with them. But I'm not keeping them anyway, I'm giving them away. But I have already planned to knit the next pair because there's somebody else who wants a pair. Yeah, so I finished those in order to cast on the next project. And you know what? I'm going to put the jacket back on. Sometimes I can't decide whether I'm warm or cold, and I'll just keep the jacket open. Maybe that's the right amount of warmth that I need right now. Yeah, and the next finished object are the Sock Madness socks that I knit. I started them before I went on holiday, so right after I did the last video, the pattern dropped and I started knitting them. And because I thought I might still be in the competition, I started the cuffs in the medium size, which was the minimum requirement for the competition. But then it was very obvious with one thing and another that I wouldn't be able to get one of the spots. And the foot had to be started at the toe, so you knit in different directions. And the arrows actually show which way you knit. So these are knit top down, then the feet are knit toe up, and then this bit is knit in the round. And so this arrow shows the direction I was knitting, and on this band I I reversed the pattern. So this doesn't show the direction I was knitting because I was not knitting backwards. Yeah, but as I was saying, I decided to knit the small size for the feet so I could make the socks fit me. And by doing this modification, it was clear I couldn't compete because I wasn't fulfilling the minimum requirement. But all the spots in my team were long gone before I came ever near finishing the socks. So I knitted this in size S, and this bit should have been knit twice, which would have made it a really long sock. So I only knitted it once, and then you picked up stitches and you used the stitches that you already had, and then this is knit in the round. And then there's a very special heel construction that I did not completely follow because this is already really big. So I don't have a very high instep, and this part is a bit loose on my foot, but it's not too bad. You can see photos of me wearing the socks on Ravelry, on my Ravelry page. With the first sock, so first I knit both the cuffs, and then I knit one toe and finished the sock, and then I knit the second toe and finished the second sock. Yeah, and with the first one I was so busy making things fit, because this is a different size than that I did not take care to line up the arrows. So these don't sit on top of each other, and neither do these. But the back of the sock is fairly where it should be. So I think this is supposed to be in the middle of the back of the leg, so that works out really nicely. And then with the second sock, just for a change, I made sure that these arrows actually sit on top of each other, which made this arrow sit here. Haven't woven in any of the ends, this is why there's a hole. And it also means that this arrow sits at the side of the leg and not at the back, but that's no problem. I'm really happy with the colors. This is a colorful rainforest colorway by Opal, and they're dark blue, solid color by Opal, and I think these are really funny, happy socks, and even though they're a bit loose, I don't mind. I'm looking forward to wearing them a lot. So, oh, by the way, the Worst Way socks is what the pattern is called for the round 5 socks for the Sock Madness. They were designed by Carolyn Lille or Lissel or Lyle, I don't know how to pronounce her, but she on Ravelry she's called Perry Dragon, and she has lots of beautiful designs if you're looking for nice designs. Yeah, then the round 6 pattern dropped while I was on holiday. I didn't bring any yarn, so I didn't cast them on, but they are all about cables, so lots of different funny cables. I think I will knit them, so I might cast them on this week and then see how far I come. I won't knit on them exclusively, so I won't have them finished next week. But today the pattern for the last round dropped, and that's actually a double knit sock. And I've always wanted to knit a double knit sock, but it's also, it uses 6 colors, and you always use all 6 colors in every round because it's also knit in the intage technique. So like with the qualifying socks, you have to knit them to and fro, which with double knitting isn't too bad because you knit in purl all the time anyway, but you have to handle 6 balls of yarn all the time, and I don't really feel up to doing that, so I probably won't knit that pair of socks. Maybe someday, but probably not now, not this year. Yeah, so that's all the finished objects. I only started one new project. I'm really proud of myself. I have lots and lots of projects planned, so I'm not sure it's going to stay that way, but we'll see. My works in progress. I forgot to bring a sock blocker for this sock. I'll quickly take one from these. My oldest pair of socks that are on the needles are the bright pink lace socks from this beautiful book with lace patterned socks, and I finished the first one probably already last time I recorded, I can't remember right now, and I finished the ball of yarn I was knitting with. So this is how far I got. I didn't bring the other one, so I couldn't continue knitting those during the holidays. It has a red pattern on the back of the leg. It has this beautiful lace and cable pattern on the front. It has a short row heel with the ribs running into the heel, which I think is quite nice. Yeah, and now I have to find the other bright pink ball of yarn, and then I can finish these socks. I will probably try to finish them this week, I think. The other pair of lace socks are the pattern battle socks that I'm knitting as part of the pattern battle. This is one of the Opal Abo yarns, the subscription yarn where you get 6 balls of yarn and you don't know which colors you're getting. By the way, the next parcel is, I think it's coming this week. It's either this week or next week, which means that after that, the next pattern battle will start, and I haven't even finished the first sock. But anyway, it's always okay to be knitting 2 pattern battles at the same time. So I continued knitting on my first sock, and I got the yarn tangled around my needles. Okay, this is what I've got. Again, it has a ribbed back, but it's a different way of ribbing. It's another lace cable pattern, and it has a heel flap construction. Yeah, and I've finished with the decreases, and now I just need to knit the foot. And last time I think I said I was going to knit them for myself, but my aunt, whose birthday it was recently, said that she would like to get these, and so I'm going to knit them for her. But she has the same shoe size as me, so it doesn't really matter. It'll end up being the same size as originally planned. So that's that. And the last sock I have on my needles is another pair of film reel socks knit out of another colorway of Opal Cats and Dogs series, and it's this beautiful turquoisey blue. And I finished the first sock. Really happy. I really like this film where it's half dark and half light, but I also like the fact that it's one light film and then a dark film. It's really funny. So I had just gone back to the light blue, but because I had a light blue cuff here, I actually unwound a bit of yarn to make sure that I get a dark cuff for the second sock. So the second sock isn't really very big yet. Just started with the cuff, or it's probably half a cuff, I guess. Yeah. So this is the second film reel sock for this pair. Yeah, so that's it for socks. Then there I have one new project that I'm knitting on double pointed needles, and it's the project that by the way, forgot to show. This is the leftover yarn from the Mitts About You double knit brioche mittens that I knit. So I needed less than 50 grams for each color. So that was really nice. And then the next project out of the Sockomaticians double knit brioche book is the pattern called Cuff Muff Double Ender. And Cuff Muff in his book is a sort of cuff that you can put on one hand, and it's tight on one end and open on the other end in case you want to use your hand and keep putting it in and out, or you want to hold your phone and want to take pictures or whatever. So that's quite fun. But he also designed a Cuff Muff Double Ender, which I like a lot better. And that's because I've always wanted to have a muff to put my hands in. I've always liked the idea. I've seen lots of patterns for it, but so far never knit one. And when he announced that there was going to be a muff in his book, I knew I had to knit it. So I decided to use the bulky weight alpaca yarn by Hansa Farm. This is exactly the same weight that he uses in the book, and it's a extremely soft and wonderful yarn that I love to use. Now the cuff muff starts off with a bit of double knitting. So this is just double knitting without brioche. So you have one side in this color, the other side in that color, with a tiny bit of pattern in between, or pattern in a bit of color pattern, that's what I'm trying to say. Then you switch to, this is just double knit reverse stockinette, and then you change to double knit brioche, and that's all you do. So to get the width, you don't have to do any increases. It's the same number of stitches, but instead of knitting them normally, you knit them in double knit brioche, and that's so squishy and nice. But the most interesting thing about this pattern is that you learn to knit increases and decreases in double knit brioche. But before you do that, there's a little bit of reverse stockinette double knitting, but not with the same number of stitches, because then it would have gotten smaller again, but with double the stitches. So with double the stitches in double knitting, it's the same width as the brioche before. And then it goes straight back into brioche, but the colors get reversed. So this bit is double knit brioche with the knit stitches in the other color than here. And then here are these decreases and increases. I hadn't realized beforehand, but you actually do a decrease and an increase exactly at the same moment. And then you do repeat the whole thing here. Then there's those two rounds of double knitting, and then again double knit brioche with the colors reversed again to be the same as at the beginning. I learned so much by doing this. There is a slight, I don't know if it's a mistake, but in the pattern, the explanations say to do the increase and decrease with a row of preparation, so to say, but he forgot to mention that in the pattern itself. So you either add another round or you try to remember beforehand that in the last round, before you do the decrease and increase, you do that preparation. Or that's what I did in the first time I knit the pattern, is you can just use a different decrease that doesn't need the preparatory round, preparation round, let's say it that way. So that's what I did here, but that makes it a bit more difficult, and I don't think I got it completely right. Some of my yarn overs weren't quite where they were supposed to be, so I had to work around that a little bit. So the second time the pattern came, I did the preparation in the round before. It made it a lot easier, but I don't think you can't really tell that I used a bit of a different technique there. Really happy with how they look. By the way, with both projects, both this and the Myths About You mittens, I made them a bit shorter than in the pattern. My hands are probably quite a bit smaller than Nathan's hands, so I don't need quite the length that he needs. And just putting my hands in like this, it's so warm. So all I need to do now is finish the brioche bit, the double knit brioche bit, then repeat this pattern and this cuff, and then I'm done. And I really like doing that. And I want to have so many more muffs, and I want to knit in all the colors, and I would probably put a different pattern every time and play around with it a lot. So it's fantastic project. So yeah, that's the only new cast on for today. All the other projects I'm going to show you, you've seen before, maybe not recently, but you have seen them. Let's see. You know that I did this preview knit for Yuki Knits for this scarf. She made it a scarf. I know she decided on a name now, but I can't remember, and it's not published yet. She was going to publish it in between middle and end of May, so maybe next week, maybe I'll be finished with mine, and maybe she'll have it released. She will have released it. That'd be great. So these were the three bits that I had already sewn together, and I have now finished knitting all the other hexies. And of course, I can't remember which you've already seen and which are new, but I not only knit them, I also block them all, and I put them down in a certain order that I quite like and took a picture. You can have a look on Ravelry if you're interested, and that's probably the way I'm going to sew them together. I only did 10 hexies now, not 12, and and this is the one hexie with the other yarn. So this is a ball of, it's a single ply lang yarn, and this is a sock yarn by Ferner, and it's a 4-ply yarn, but it has sort of the same colors. And I had been thinking of doing another one in this yarn, and maybe one with both yarns combined, but this is all I had left after I finished the 9th hexie in this yarn. They all weigh about 11 grams. So yeah, I only have like 1 or 2 grams left. It's not really worth casting on with this and then doing another whole hexie in the other yarn, especially now that I've laid them out and measured them. I'm pretty sure that with the 10 motifs, it's long enough to put it around my neck twice. We'll see. If I sew it together and it doesn't fit, I might still add 2 more. But right now, I think I'll just take those 10 hexies, sew them together, like 5 next to each other, 2 on top of each other, like in the photo, and then I should have a nice cowl. We'll see. So that's that. Then I continued knitting on my cashmere pullover. So I'm knitting a pullover out of Hansa Farms cashmere yarn, and it's out of the book Circular Yokes. What's it called? I keep forgetting what the books are called. It's linked underneath the video if you are interested. Last time I showed it to you, I had almost finished the yoke. So there were only a few rounds left of pattern to do. I think it's only those 2 rounds with the one dot of light grey. After that, I put in the short rows that are in the pattern, and then I continued knitting on the front and back until I had finished my ball of yarn. So this is this. And then I started knitting the first sleeve. I haven't finished the sleeve yet because I find it difficult to determine how long I want the sleeve to be as long as I haven't finished the neckline. Because depending on what kind of ribbing or how much ribbing I put in here, I don't really know how the pullover is going to sit on me. And then it's hard to say how long the sleeve should be. And also I'm working with 2 different dye lots because I ordered the yarn in 2 different orders because I didn't know I was going to make a pullover. But anyway, so I've decided to use the last 4 balls of yarn that I had in the first, not colorway, but dye lot, 2 for the front and back and 1 for each sleeve. So that's what I did with the first sleeve. I knit until the yarn was gone, and then now I'm knitting on the second sleeve. I'm still working on that. And then I thought that I can do the collar and the ribbing on the sleeves and the rest of the front and back in the new dye lot, and hopefully it won't be obvious. I mean, it's black, shouldn't be too different, but still I thought if I use a different pattern with a different dye lot, it'll make it less obvious. Yeah, so really happy. There's several pictures on Ravelry with me wearing what I have so far. Right now, I think once I finish the sleeve, I will probably first work on the neckline just because there's so many decisions to be made, and then I can just continue knitting on the front and back, and then at some point see how to finish off all the pieces. So that's that. Then I continued knitting on the Fragmentation Shawl by Stephen West, my second Stephen West shawl. And last time I was still working on wedge number 5, but I finished wedge number 5 and I'm now knitting on wedge number 6. So yeah, with the 6 wedges, I think it would be a sort of normal half square, not square, half circle, but because there's going to be a 7th wedge, that's what makes it like more than half a circle, which means the shawl will sit on my shoulders a lot nicer than if it was just a normal half semicircle. So yeah, really looking forward to doing that. Did not finish the yarn at all. But yeah, still enjoying the knit. It's a rather mindless knit now. It's not very complicated, and looking forward to seeing that grow. And that brings me to all the crochet projects. Wasn't a conscious decision to put them all together, but it just ended up being that way. And one of the things that I always do when I'm on holiday is I take little mini opal balls of yarn that have 10 grams and I crochet squares. And the one thing that sort of that all the squares have in common is the color green. So I use either mini skeins of yarn that have green in them or some leftover yarn. So this is what I've crocheted together so far. These are squares that I crocheted in other holidays that I haven't attached yet. And during the last 2 weeks, I crocheted those squares. So there's very little green in this one, but still counts. This is a funny one. This is actually the leftover yarn from the Sock Madness socks. So I've already knit another pair of socks with this colorful yarn. I knit these socks now, and I still had enough to do a crochet square, and I hope what I have left now will be enough to do a knitted square in my memories blanket. And I did one sparkly square with leftover yarn from the yarn that I used for my gloves or mittens that I wear for riding when I ride my bike a lot, and it wasn't enough. I didn't have enough yarn to finish the square, so I will have to find some other yarn to just do these two sides to finish off this square. Yeah, so now I have quite a few squares that I can attach. I will probably sit down at some point and attach them all. And yeah, the granny pattern was something that I did a lot during the holiday because of course I brought my huge alpaca lace granny square. So I'm using all the lace weight alpaca yarn colors that Hansa Farm produced. And the last time I showed it to you, I think I was still crocheting somewhere here with the lighter gray in it. And then once I'd done the 5th repeat of the dark gray, I had been thinking of only doing black for the edge, but now I've decided to do 2 rounds of black and then 1 of dark gray, and then I'm crocheting on the 2nd round of the black now, I think. No, I'm still on the 1st round of black. So there's dark gray at the edge here, and I've started the another black round, and yeah, and at some point I will have to make a decision that the square is big enough. By the way, I think I washed and blocked it since I podcast last. So this is the size that I have now. The yarn's caught up somehow. Oh dear. Here we go. Okay. So this is what it looks like. It's really light. It's a lot lighter than you think. And it almost has the size that I'm looking for. It's not too bad, not too bad. So yeah, there's still a bit of crochet to do on this square, and my friend who had the ideas with putting in beads also gave me some black beads, so I have to try and see if I can get those onto the yarn and if what they look like with this pattern, and then if I really put a bead in every cluster of stitches, it'll take a long time. Anyway, that brings me to the crochet along that we are doing on this channel at the moment, and that's the Horizon cardigan or crochet hexagon cardigan or whatever you want to call it. So, and it's another granny pattern. It's not a square, it's a granny hexagon, but still. So I told you I was going to use the red yarn. It's one of the rainforest colors. I started a red hexagon and I crocheted until the width for the sleeve was wide enough, and then I switched to the blue and added rows just for the front and back, and then I crocheted the sleeves together also with the blue yarn, and that means that I've basically finished the first half of my cardigan. It's not completely finished because I might make the sleeve longer, and I might also crochet onto the fronts and backs, but I won't do that until I finish the second half. So the red part, I have this much left of my 150 gram ball, so I think it would not have been enough to do another round, but I didn't try. So I just decided this was wide enough for my sleeve anyway, so I thought it's a good time to stop, and then I use this colorway to make the fronts and backs wider and longer, and then crochet the sleeve together, and I still have quite a bit left, so I still have enough yarn to both make the sleeves longer and make the whole cardigan longer. And I'm still not sure how big I really want it to be, so I'll do the second half now, and then Once I've crocheted the two halves together and I can actually try it on, then I can decide from there how long I want the sleeves to be and how long I want the rest of the cardigan to be, and so on. So this was quite a long episode, but I had to catch up on 3 weeks. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!